John Mercure here for Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living. Their mission is to transform the culture of care. They specialize in caring for those with early to late stage Alzheimer's or other related dementia symptoms, memory care issues. It's Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living. I've been in their places. I love how they deal with people. It's about compassion and empathy at Azura. Kindness is at their core. 14 locations from the Mississippi to Lake Michigan, 4 here in the Milwaukee area. Wisconsin-based and family-owned. It's about kindness and care. It's Azura Memory Care and Assisted Living.
We're on the air in 3, 2...
Hey, it's Vince Vitrano.
John Mercure here.
Wait, does that car say Pella on the side? What's Gina Della doing here?
Sorry, I'm late.
We're on the air in 3, 2...
Recognize my voice? Get used to it.
Talk all things Windows, business, and being a boss in more ways than one with Gina Della for Pella's very own show right here on WTMJ. Starting February 1st, tune into What's the Difference every Saturday morning at 6:30 or stream anytime on WTMJ.com.
What a tease.
Built Right Furniture, Leather, and Mattress.
You gotta get to Built Right today.
Trusted, relevant, locally owned, locally programmed. We are Wisconsin's radio station. News Radio 620, WTMJ Milwaukee.
Good morning, 9:01. We have cloudy skies and 38 degrees. It's going to be partly to mostly cloudy today with maybe some isolated showers, breezy, high today 45. From the WTMJ Breaking News Center, I'm Connie Weber. Hundreds of Milwaukee families begin taking students to a new school miles away today. Trowbridge School temporarily closed after high lead levels were uncovered last month. Milwaukee Health Department Commissioner Dr. Mike Todoratis says the presence of lead after previous cleaning efforts is what makes the Trowbridge situation different than other lead discoveries in NPS buildings this year.
Whatever process that had been used successfully in the other schools had not been used in Trowbridge, and there is the potential that the levels of lead dust within the school were significantly above what we had initially anticipated in the school.
Students and staff relocating to Wisconsin Conservatory of Lifelong Learning. It's unclear when Trowbridge School could reopen. A Milwaukee Common Council committee will vote today on a resolution to return school resource officers to Milwaukee Public School buildings. The Judiciary and Legislation Committee's special meeting comes after a Milwaukee County judge found the city in contempt over their noncompliance on the issue last week. If passed, that resolution would go before the Common Council during their meeting on Tuesday. European leaders scrambling to contain the fallout from the explosive Oval Office meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Russia, meanwhile, celebrating the explosive meeting. Here's ABC News Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce.
The Kremlin overnight noting the U.S. is rapidly changing its foreign policy, saying it is now, quote, largely in line with our vision. Meanwhile, here at the White House today, the president is expected to meet with his top national security advisors to be briefed on Ukraine and discuss next steps.
President Zelensky says his country is grateful for the U.S.'s support and there will be diplomacy for peace. He was asked to leave the White House Friday without signing a deal that would push forward a ceasefire. Wildfire emergency in the Carolinas. Firefighters battling at least 175 wildfires across South and North Carolina, prompting evacuation orders in both states. ABC's Stephanie Ramos is in Myrtle Beach.
One of the largest fires threatening communities near Myrtle Beach. A wall of fire burning down on homes near the Carolina forest, leaving hundreds of trees charred. The South Carolina National Guard deploying 2 Black Hawk helicopters to help fight the flames. Emergency personnel racing to extinguish the fire, too.
Southern and central parts of the plains set to be hit by a severe winter storm today. That storm will hit the Midwest by tomorrow, Great Lakes region by Wednesday. National Weather Service said the Sierra Nevada could see around 12 inches of snow, while the Rockies and Great Basin could get as much as 24 inches in higher areas. Wisconsin's climate can be dreary as winter transitions to spring, but some relish this time as a season of its own. Maple sugaring. Executive Director of River Edge Nature Center John Bukowski tells Wisconsin's Weekend Morning News about the centuries-old tree tapping tradition.
It's mostly water, sugar, and some trace elements when it's coming out of the tree. But then that sap is collected and hauled to where it's stored until we have enough to actually cook or boil down.
Weather needs to be just right for the sap to flow, with night temperatures in the upper 20s and day temps in the mid to upper 30s. Time for news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Down arrows on Wall Street. Dow is off 32 points. The Nasdaq down 134. S&P 500 is down 19. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather are next. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time 9:04.
Do you want the economy mulch or the premium? The only real difference is that the premium mulch has thicker strands, while the economy mulch is finer. But the colorant we use for both is of the highest quality, and that's why the color of our mulch lasts longer. And our mulch comes from trees, not pallets, and we process it all in-house. That's why our prices are so low. Erickson's Landscape Supply, high-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection. At Erickson's Landscape Supply, we have durable, maintenance-free polywood patio furniture and #1 grade treated natural pine Amish-made patio furniture. And we also have a wonderful assortment of concrete benches, statues, and fountains available in a selection you just gotta see to believe. Erickson's Landscape Supply, high-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less, plus a whole lot more. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection or stop on in today.
In 1964, we were making strides towards space travel.
Mary Poppins was the #1 movie in theaters.
And the Beatles were taking America by storm.
Which was long before I was born.
Facts. 1964 is also the year it all started for Richland's Tire and Service Centers. 60 years of continuous growth and more happy customers than you can shake a stick at.
Okay, the streamers are a bit overkill. It's just us in the studio.
All right. But it's important to know accomplishments like these aren't possible without a dedicated team. So hats off to them and our founder, my dad, Dick Mitchke, for understanding the importance of customer focus.
Facts. There's no 60 years of anything without you, the customer, which is why our focus will remain on you and only you for years to come.
Thank you from all of us here at Richland's Tire and Service Centers.
Richland's Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richland's.
Time for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All Sports Desk. Bucks on the road tomorrow night, tipping off against the Hawks from Atlanta. Wisconsin basketball fell to #8 Michigan State, 71-62 from Breslin Center. 12th-ranked Badgers visit Minnesota Wednesday night. Badger Sports Update sponsored by Siding Unlimited, siding and a whole lot more. Wednesday night, #22 Marquette visits UConn. Milwaukee begins the Horizon League tournament as a 3rd seed on Thursday night. And the Brewers played the Guardians to a 12-12 tie in spring training baseball from Goodyear. Milwaukee still 4-5 in exhibition play and will square off against the Reds tonight. Taking a look at the roads now with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. There was a crash on the exit to Elm Road from I-41 south. Ramp closures from West Drexel Avenue to I-41 north at the north-south freeway. You can expect lane closures there due to a disabled vehicle. A disabled vehicle also on the ramp from County G to I-41 south. And I-94 east at Mitchell right shoulder there blocked due to a broken down vehicle. Here's your WTMJ 5-day forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy, isolated showers today. Breezy with a high of only 45. Scattered showers overnight, low of 40. Scattered rain, isolated thunderstorms tomorrow. It's going to be steady rain later on with a high Tuesday of 47. Rain changing to snow on Wednesday with minor accumulation, mostly slush. It'll be windy on Wednesday with a high of 46. And then mostly sunny on Thursday, breezy, high 40. Chance of snow or a wintry mix on Friday, 38 for the high. 36 in Madison, 35 in Green Bay, 38 in Milwaukee. I'm Connie Weber. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:08.
Good morning, Wisconsin. So let's pour that coffee and talk to some experts about what's going on in Milwaukee, Madison, Washington, and beyond. Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. It's the Political Power Hour on WTMJ. Here's your host, Steve Scaffidi.
Should we talk about the government?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Got a special show today. I'm not going to dilly-dally with this one. Joining me in studio, And we were talking before the show, Steve Wexler, by the way.
Hey, Steve.
Who's had a million titles, and we're going to go through those titles. I wanted to have, after your retirement on Friday, I wanted to have you in just to chat with you about broadcasting, because you have a rich history, not necessarily on the mic, but away from the mic.
On the mic early on, though, too, before I got into management, yes.
Right. So let's do it. Let's review all of your positions that you've had in broadcasting.
You want Steve Wexler's titles over the years?
In 30 seconds or less.
In 30 seconds or less. Do we have a timer?
Yes.
Do we have a production piece to go along with this?
No, we don't have any fancy stuff.
Let's see. Intern, 1977. Producer at WTMJ, 1980. On air, the Wex All Night Show.
Which
the
was short-lived? Short-lived?
What do you mean short-lived? It was like years, 4 or 5 years.
It was?
I used to read a forecast from somebody named Scaffidi on that show.
Absolutely.
Program director at WISN in Milwaukee, then program director in Portland, Oregon, and in Seattle, Washington, then program director at WTMJ, 1993, then off to Tucson, Arizona to be the general manager, then television and radio general manager, Omaha, Nebraska, regional vice president, executive vice president of the radio division, president and CEO.
That's too many things.
And then finally consultant and coach, which is what I'm doing now in my semi-retired position. Plus there's also dad and husband and grandpa too.
That's a hell of a resume.
How about that?
What'd you learn in all those years?
Oh, my gosh. I learned a lot. When I look back, I think of all the things that I did wrong and mistakes I made along the way. And basically, that's how I created the consultancy, because I tried to learn from those and be maybe a couple of degrees smarter today.
Anybody who's listening to WTMJ knows your influence and your wisdom and all the things you've been a part of and all the shows. And a lot of the people that work here still are people that you brought in. Matter of fact, you were involved in my hiring, so thanks for that every day.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and we've gotten to know each other really well over the last few years, because you sort of trained me to be a better broadcaster, which I really appreciate, by the way.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, to me, the most gratifying part of the job, whether I was sitting in the executive office or being here in the studio, which, by the way, is where I've always felt most at home.
Yeah.
I mean, there were days when I'd be in the corner suite going, what is the intern doing here? Like, they're going to find out that the intern is now like running the company and kick me out of here. But I've always enjoyed the sharing of information about the content and how do we be better at the craft. And of course, the craft, as you well know, has changed dramatically over the years.
Yeah, and that's what I really wanted to spend some time on today, because you have the rich broadcast history. You were at UWM right around the same time as I was.
I started at UWM. I didn't finish because I ended up working in broadcasting, and then I had to actually go back years later to finish my degree, because the board of directors at the old journal company thought the guy running the radio station ought to have a degree. So, but I was at UWM studying mass comm in, I want to say 1980, 1979, right around there.
Yeah, it's my mic's cutting out here. All right, my headphones are cutting out. Anyway, that's when I was there, and we probably crossed paths. Didn't know each other.
Paths, yeah.
Yeah, and I always love the fact that we have this local connection, because you and I have talked before. The powerhouse of a station, WTMJ, that brand, if nothing, is local and important. And that's what I love about what you have done for me and what you've done for the station over all the years. And the news says you retired on Friday.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. But I agree with you. I think especially today, when everything has changed, by the way, because media is not, there used to be a few choices. You had a radio station, a few TV stations, a newspaper, maybe a magazine. Today, there are literally millions of things you can listen to, podcasts and satellite and cable and over-the-air broadcast as well. So it's changed, but I do think somewhere at the end of the day, the power of local content, local connection still is meaningful. We know that advertisers look for it, and we know that listeners and communities need it as well.
And personality, too.
Well, yeah, without the personalities, I've always felt, then we're just, there's nothing personal about it.
You're
There's
reading
no
off a
connection.
teletype in the old days.
Yeah, and so I think the power, and I learned this when I started out, I started at WTMJ under the tutelage of, a guy named Jonathan Green. So this is going back to the mid-'70s, early '80s. And Jonathan was a great example of a personality on WTMJ, and he brought his own specific brand of humor and of entertainment. And I remember sitting there, Steve, going, okay, this isn't just like a radio station. This is a radio station full of people. So my outlook was formed from an early age by people like Gordon Hinckley and Jonathan Green and people like that. And then at that time, we were over at Radio City on Capitol Drive. I got to walk over to the TV side and see people who did the weather like Paul Joseph or the news like John McCullough. So those early influences have kind of stayed with me through the years.
Couple of Steves talking about radio, and we're going to get to some of the history of radio. But more importantly, this is what I love. This is why I wanted to have you in today. What those decisions made years ago, 80 years ago, all the way back to 1987.
Well, wait, I didn't make decisions 80 years ago.
No.
Oh, you mean
we
other
weren't
decisions.
there 80
Okay.
years ago, but decisions were made that impacted all the things that we know as radio, and probably even more importantly for our conversation, talk radio.
Yes.
We're going to get into it. The two Steves on 620 WTMJ.
Whatever you want to call this season, we're over it. Time to look forward to
Fly ball, right field. It is deep. It is gone.
spring training is finally here and back on the radio.
It is up and it is gone. A walk-off homer for Vinny Capra.
Make sure to catch our next spring training broadcast as the Brewers take on the Reds Monday at 6:55. No matter the season, we are the home of the Brewers. WTMJ.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Scaffidi. Tariffs and the threat of their implementation have become a central part of the United States trade and foreign policy. What are tariffs? How are they implemented? And what sectors of the economy could benefit if they're put in place? Join me and Annex Wealth Management's Dave Spano, the guy, also Chief Economist Brian Jacobson, March 11th at 1 p.m. for this informative webinar. Learn how your portfolio and your financial plan might be affected by tariffs. Visit the Annex Wealth Management webinar page on WTMJ.com.
We love being a trusted friend in the community for those who need an attorney but don't know where to turn. Our clients aren't the kind of people who typically bring lawsuits. Our clients have been hurt in a crash or accident and need our help and advice. I'm Frank Pasternak of Pasternak and Zergabel. Jeff Zergabel and I are injury attorneys living, working, and giving back in our community. When you need help from exceptional personal injury lawyers, go to Pasternak and Zergabel at injurywisconsin.com.
Hey, it's WTMJ's Greg Matzek. Have you been to the Hounds and Tap yet? In Menominee Falls, this state-of-the-art facility and the ultimate hangout for hounds and humans. Grab a drink at the indoor-outdoor tavern, let your dogs hang out. You can even book professional grooming services. From pedicures to full spa treatments. Every day is a play day at the Hounds and Tap. Hang out with your dog and others, or drop your dog off for doggy daycare or doggy boarding services. Check out thehoundsandtap.com. That's thehoundsandtap.com.
For over a century, local broadcasting has evolved with the needs of the community. We move past the stigmas of opinion journalism and bring the most relevant news online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Special hour today with my friend and former teammates, and I guess still teammate, because we're going to still be hanging around in very different
Somehow
ways.
I got in today. I don't know how that happened.
You still have complete and total access.
Yeah, that surprised me this morning. I was sitting there knocking on the door, and I went, I'll just try my key.
Oh, still works.
And it opened, so I'm going to just keep showing up.
Trick is if you can sit in an office, and all of a sudden people go, how come Wex has a new office?
I don't want to sit in an office anymore. I'm done with my office days.
All right.
George Costanza in Seinfeld.
Exactly, yes. I love talking about radio, and, as a mass comm student as well, we sort of know the history, but you know it better than anybody, and you and I have talked about this stuff. It goes back to something called the Fairness Doctrine.
Fairness Doctrine.
And I believe it was 1947 or something like that?
Yeah, right around 1950,
Yes.
It was first implemented by the FCC.
All right, so it's a simple question, but I want to sort of illuminate, because where I want to get to is how we got to where we're at now. The reasons for that were...
So the Fairness Doctrine was created because broadcasters, and I mean over-the-air broadcasters, radio stations and TV stations, were entrusted with something called a license, an FCC license.
Yeah,
You need
all
a
controlled by
license.
the government.
Yes, this is all regulated by the FCC. By the way, the newspapers don't have a FCC license. Today, cable doesn't, satellite doesn't, podcasts don't, but over-the-air broadcasters do because they're using airwaves. They are transmitting still from towers, right, that are located all over the area. So the FCC said, here's a license, but in exchange for the license, you have to talk about things of interest, news and current events, and, you have to make sure that you cover those issues from all sides. You
Diverse
have to treat them-
viewpoints.
Diverse viewpoints. You have to treat the issues of the day fairly. The Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine lasted, 1950, 1960, 1970. In the mid-70s, under the Reagan administration, broadcasters and others said, hey, wait a minute. Why is the government making broadcasters treat these issues, quote unquote, fairly when nobody else does. Newspapers, magazines, the internet was just beginning, Steve, to create content where people were looking for different channels and different brands. So the fairness doctrine was eliminated. Well, that changed everything.
I was going to say everything.
Everything.
Especially
And
talk radio.
Talk radio changed on that day because on that day, whether you like this or not, or whether you agree with it or not, radio stations and to some degree TV stations could actually program a point of view, and they had no requirement to cover it from divergent points of view.
From your management background, from your station leadership perspective, for all those years, was that a good decision in 1987 to essentially say, no, we're not doing that?
So I'm going to say yes, it was a good decision, even though I know the fault lines in the argument. The reason that I believe it was the correct decision is I tend to be a free market thinker about enterprise. And to have broadcasters required to run their content a certain way while our friends and colleagues in newspaper, in print, the internet, satellite, today, podcasts, and all the other platforms not be regulated that way struck me and still strikes me as completely unfair. So I know some will say that our public discourse today, which is obviously polarized and divisive, is somewhat a result of the fairness doctrine being lifted, and I get that. But to me, if you're putting out content that people don't want, well, it'll go away because there'll be no audience, there'll be no demand. If you're putting out content that is in demand, it'll thrive.
If you believe in free market, which I generally do, so does that mean that broadcasters then should be able to do or say anything they want live on the radio or live on TV?
So I don't. I do think that the FCC requirements on profanity, indecency, and obscenity, which, by the way, were part of the Communications Act of 1934, and they're still in effect today. There's things you can't say that you might like to say sometimes, but you can't say on the radio. By the way, over on satellite, Howard Stern can say whatever he wants. He can drop F-bombs. He can say things that you can't because he's not regulated by the FCC. So I do think that the FCC's rules about profanity, obscenity, and indecency are probably fine, but I don't believe the FCC ought to be regulating our content.
I'm glad you made that point because the ability to almost say whatever you want is part of the allure and popularity of Howard Stern. I will also make the argument on talk radio, the ability to go after governmental leaders or parties is sort of the attractiveness and the selling of stations, broadcast networks, and the like, who can do or say almost anything now and
Yes.
do it legally.
Well, and when I was first building talk radio stations in the late 80s and the early 90s, so here in Milwaukee, in Portland, Oregon, and in Seattle, Washington. And then when I came back to WTMJ in 1993, this was when Charlie Sykes was on and Jeff Wagner came over, and there was a real change at WTMJ because remember, this station had been Ask Your Neighbor and Fixing Your Plumbing and corny jokes, and it was a very sort of friendly radio station. I came back to program it. I remember being in meetings where we realized that if we were going to be successful, meaning we'd have ratings, we'd have revenue, we'd have sales, we'd have popularity, we had to have something to sort of run against. We had to have a boogeyman, a villain. Over at WISN at that time, the boogeyman was the Milwaukee Journal or WTMJ Radio.
Still are.
Still are. When I was in Portland, Oregon, the boogeyman was the Portland Oregonian, the newspaper, because the idea was they were out of step. They were left-leaning. They weren't relevant. And so we built brands that went after liberal establishment media. And guess what? There was a demand for it. So whether that makes you happy or not, we saw the results oftentimes overnight.
Steve Wexler on the mic for the full hour. Think about this during the break.
Okay.
If we have this free market environment, why does it seem, and I want to get your opinion on this because maybe you disagree, these stations, broadcast networks that shift to the right are more popular? Why do you think that is? Steve Wexler is my guest. All right, quick break, 620 WTMJ.
How you doing?
What are you doing here?
What? I work here.
I thought you quit.
What, quit? Who quit?
The Upswing with Jeff Sherman.
The Chief Marketing Officer at Sprecher Brewing Company, Sam Keene, joins us. Your new partnership with Assassin's Creed Shadows.
They didn't bat an eye when we brought these gaming IPs in. They sold it into retailers. That really set the tone that we were onto something. We're growing new consumers with these programs. That is huge. And
weekdays from 10 to 11 on WTMJ. Presented by Horicon Bank, the natural choice for all your banking needs.
Hey, WTMJ's John Mercure here. So I was looking at some of the bushes that have overgrown on my property, and I love our yard, but I need dormant pruning. That's what takes place during the winter when it's safe to cut back things so you have healthier trees and bushes around your house. Check right now to see if you've got stuff scraping against the siding or needs to be cut back, and schedule it now. Design Build landscaping projects are a year-round topic. Landworks Wisconsin does it the right way every time. They help people achieve their outdoor dreams by creating beautiful landscapes. I love these guys. LandworksWisconsin.com. Check them out today.
Brew City is ready to celebrate the draft's return to Wisconsin. Milwaukee Tailgate Week, presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook, April 24th through the 26th. It features a variety of gridiron activations for all ages, steeped in Milwaukee's iconic sports history, its attractions, brews, pubs, restaurants, and venues. The festivities culminate on Saturday, April 26th with Jordy Nelson's Milwaukee Tailgate with Inside the Huddle Live. Buy your tickets now for only $10 and learn more at visitmilwaukee.org/tailgate.
Your home can be more maintenance-free when you rely on J&B.
This is Tom Feza. When I need information about siding, I call Scott Klein, owner of J&B Construction, provider of high-quality exterior home improvement products and services since 1958.
I'm Scott Klein. If you're tired of painting or your siding is beyond repair, it may be time to look at the advantages of a new siding system. Additional insulation, along with Tyvek's weatherization system, can significantly improve your home's energy efficiency while protecting it from water and air infiltration. We offer a variety of siding products, all installed by J&B's certified employees, which will provide decades of performance and beauty.
For a complimentary siding evaluation, call Scott at 262-437-0537 or visit jnbconstruction.com.
Your home can be more maintenance-free when you rely on J&B.
Imagine all the things you dream of under one roof. You're thinking of eBay. Fashion, collectibles, car parts. It's all there. Go find the thing that keeps you up at night. eBay. Things people love.
Traffic is brought to you by Rejuvenix, your non-surgical joint therapy experts.
Steve Wexler's my guest. You have many positions here in and around the WTMJ and other places as well. He kind of gave you his resume earlier. If you missed any of the early part, you want to go catch that up. The podcast will be available this afternoon. Wherever you get your podcasts, certainly at WTMJ.com. I asked a big question before the break. So if this is a free market system that we live in after the Fairness Doctrine was eliminated officially in 1987, why is it the right-leaning stations or networks seem to be winning that war? What do you think?
Well, I've thought a lot about this because when I turned on stations, talk stations, I did notice that if they were right-leaning, we saw the result. We saw ratings results and an appetite for it much more quickly and more successfully if the station was sort of meant to be a political station. The best answer I've got, Steve, to this is that it's a supply and demand equation. I can tell you that I, as a manager, as an executive, I never went in and said, I want a conservative station or a liberal station because of my viewpoint. My viewpoint was irrelevant to the stations that I put on and that I developed. I simply wanted them to be successful. I wanted ratings and revenue and popularity. The conclusion that I've come to is that until Rush Limbaugh showed up in, let's call it 1987, 1988.
Right around there.
Right around there. By the way, right after the Fairness Doctrine was eliminated, is that liberal viewpoints were already being expressed, even maybe not overtly, not labeled as such, but in mainstream media. The major networks, NBC, CBS, ABC, most newspapers tended, I know there are exceptions, but tended to have a more liberal bent. So all of a sudden, this conservative viewpoint shows up on the right, and there's this huge appetite. So my answer to your question is that I think a lot of people would argue that the more liberal viewpoint has already been available. The conservative viewpoint until 1988 or 1989 was not readily available in most of these markets.
Are you surprised at all by the incredible success of the Fox News on the TV side or the Rush Limbaughs in the past? And certainly there's about a cast of characters across the country that do the same thing.
I'm not anymore. Now that I've had a chance to kind of study it and understand it better, I certainly was surprised at the outset when, like, whoa, where did this audience come from? But if you think about Fox News or maybe Rush Limbaugh or other conservative voices and take their audience and compare it to all of the other, collectively, the big networks, the big newspapers, the New York Times, et cetera, you could argue that there is actually a balance, that there's a more liberal viewpoint over here and a more conservative viewpoint over here.
If you argue that, and you make a great argument, why couldn't I say, well, if you are, and conservatives are saying this, we're upset that there's too much liberal bias in newspapers or too much liberal bias on some of the local stations or whatever that platform is.
Well, if I'm consistent with my view on free market, well, then fine. Then, go seek out the content that you wish to find, whether that's a more left-leaning or a more right-leaning viewpoint. Now, I'll editorialize. I think part of our problem today is we don't seek out opposing views. We all tend to be in echo chambers where we hear the things that reaffirm our own thoughts. But I would say go find those viewpoints.
All right, we're going to get to the news piece of this because there are some rules for news, and we're certainly starting to see forays by the federal government, maybe the FCC, into what's happening locally in news broadcasts, maybe even at the network level. There are some rules that apply. Steve Wexler, he has many job titles here at WTMJ. He's my guest for the full hour. Lots to talk about, and we're going to get to the news piece. We're going to have some fun at the end because I can't have you in here because I know you're a fun guy without doing that. Local news with Connie Weber, of course. But before we get to any of that, here's now the latest from ABC.
ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. European leaders scrambling to contain the fallout from last week's explosive Oval Office meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. ABC Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce has Moscow's reaction.
The Kremlin overnight noting the U.S. is rapidly changing its foreign policy, saying it is now, quote, largely in line with our vision. Meanwhile, here at the White House today, the president is expected to meet with his top national security advisors to be briefed on Ukraine and discuss next steps.
Most European leaders rallied around Zelensky at a weekend summit in London. One person was killed, several others hurt when a car rammed into a crowd of people in the western German town of Mannheim. The driver is under arrest. The independent film Anora, which cost only $6 million to make, was a big winner at the Oscars last night. Director Sean Baker winning Best Picture, director, screenplay, and editing, the first person to win 4 Oscars for the same film on the same night. This is ABC News.
Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:31. Shooting overnight left 3 people hurt near Milwaukee's River West and Harambee neighborhoods. Nobody in custody. Circumstances surrounding the shooting aren't clear. An apartment fire in Mequon leaves a woman hospitalized, 2 pets dead. Fire broke out Sunday afternoon on Ivy Court and Greenbrier Lane near Port Washington Road. One of the residents, an elderly woman, suffered second-degree burns. A cat and a parrot died. Southern Ozaki Fire Department tells TMJ4 News 2 sisters lived in the apartment. One of them was burned trying to put out the fire. Several units have smoke and water damage. No word yet on the cause. Green Bay Packers are enforcing their non-renewal policy to make sure season tickets are used as intended, not sold for profit. So they won't be renewing season tickets for accounts that have sold 100% of their regular season tickets for multiple years. Season tickets not renewed through this process will be offered to the Packers wait list, which has about 150,000 names. Time for some news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Dow now up 6 points, 43,847. NASDAQ down 29, 18,817. S&P 500 off just 2, 5,952. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Taking a look at the roads now with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. Still working that crash on the exit to Elm Road from I-41 South. Also a disabled vehicle on the ramp from County Road G to I-41 South. And then we've got the right lane closed on I-94 West beyond the ramp from Moreland Road. There are some construction efforts going on there. Again, just closing the right lane there on I-94 West. Is your WTMJ 5-day forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy today. Isolated showers, breezy, high 45. Scattered showers overnight with a low 40. Scattered rain, isolated thunderstorms tomorrow. Rain will be steady late in the day. High Tuesday 47. Rain changing to snow on Wednesday with some minor accumulation. High Wednesday 46. Sunny, breezy, and 40 on Thursday. Chance of a rain and snow mix on Friday with a high 38. 36 in Madison, 35 in Green Bay, 37 in Milwaukee. I'm Connie Weber. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:33.
Looking ahead to life's next adventure? Hi, I'm Mike Yancey from Yancey & Associates. Whether you're buying a home or launching your dream business, we know there's a lot on your plate. But here's the thing, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1946, we've helped Wisconsinites like you secure, protect, and grow their version of the American dream. Our team is ready to tailor the perfect plan for you. Learn more at ANSAY.com. That's ANSAY.com.
When I shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, every time I come in, it's like a whole new store. It's because new inventory is arriving daily, all kinds of everything. And let me tell you, thrift store prices make buying easy. And helping others at the same time, that's icing on the cake. St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Save big money on your next painting project at Menards. Get a paint that combines gorgeous color and durability. Dutch Boy's Platinum Plus is a paint and primer with a protective finish that guards against scuffs, spills, and stains. Refresh your home today with Dutch Boy paint. Get a gallon on sale now through March 9th. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
Hi, I'm Jim Token, president of the Auto Dealers of Metro Milwaukee. Did you know that Adam members employ more than 7,500 people? Plus, Adam recently completed their 14th annual Feeding America Change Your Oil promotion. To date, Adam has donated over $875,000, which provided over 2.6 million meals. Start your next car search by finding an Adam member dealer at adam.com. That's ADAMM.com.
Thanks for tuning in on this Monday edition of the Political Power Hour. Sort of reminiscing with my friend and teammates, now retired as of Friday.
Semi-retired. Semi-retired.
You're like me. I'd probably never step away.
I'm still doing some speaking and some coaching here and there, but I'm doing it on my terms.
That's the best way.
Yes.
And you have new grandkids to celebrate, which I love. And the new one is...
The new one is actually, I think, watching us right now. He's 4 months old, so I'm not sure how much of this he's really comprehending.
You never know. God bless technology,
Absolutely.
Though. And the stream, all those folks out there, yes, we love doing what we're doing. All right, I want to talk about we're talking about sort of talk radio. Let's talk about the news part of it. This is sort of a touchy subject, right? Because people want their news. Now, I would argue that people... They don't really want news. They just want things they can agree with. That's like a whole nother public opinion part of this story. But the FCC is sort of signaling they're going to start looking at this. What does that mean to you as someone who's been around broadcasting as long as you have?
So this is new. I mean, this is different because the FCC, and we talked earlier about what they regulate and what they don't, the FCC traditionally and by law has not gotten involved in news content unless there's clear violations, lying, stealing, defamation, slander, and all the rest. But the FCC under this administration has sort of signaled that they might be interested in opening what's called an inquiry, Steve, into what is being reported. And there have been a couple of interesting developments. There was a radio station out in San Francisco that was reporting on police activity related to some immigration raids at a packing house or some kind of business.
Things that are happening around the country as we speak.
Yes, exactly. Right. This is like in real time. And the police said, hey, we don't love having police activity reported by a station. Now, the First Amendment and tradition would tell you that unless we've said something incorrectly and we've been wrong, the media has the right to broadcast information and news. Well, the FCC has opened an inquiry into whether that's a proper use of the broadcast license. And a lot of people think it's really meant more as sort of a warning shot, as sort of a chilling
That's the word I was going to use.
To
chilling
broadcasters.
effect on broadcasters.
Because so the theory goes, this administration would like broadcasters to be a little more careful about holding power to account, going after politicians, maybe saying things that the government might not want them to say.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the punishments or penalties of the FCC saying you're not doing what we like you or want you to do is a station losing its license.
So that is the ultimate penalty.
That's the death penalty for stations.
It is, because literally it would mean like if WTMJ lost its FCC license, you could still do a show on the internet, but the over-the-air radio signal on AM 620 would go away because you need a license to do this. Like you have a car license. Without your driver's license, you can't drive a car. Without an FCC broadcast license, you can't broadcast to people. So the FCC can fine broadcasters. They can levy fines, small fines, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars if they want. They can do inquiries. And yes, if they really feel that any broadcaster has repeatedly and maliciously violated FCC rules, they can, although it's not been done in many, many years, they can revoke a broadcast license.
So it's an interesting paradox because on one hand, we're saying let the stations do what they want. It's free market, blah, blah, blah. But here we have the government through the FCC saying to a station, no, we don't like that. We're going to go after you. We're going to take your license.
Well, and that's why a lot of broadcasters are watching this carefully, because it's one thing to say you're going after me because I violated an indecency provision, or I violated a sponsor ID rule, which is a whole nother part of the regulation, or political advertising rules, because there are rules about political advertising on radio and TV. It's a whole nother category to say, I'm going to open an inquiry because I don't like your news reporting, or I didn't like the way you reported on that story, or perhaps I didn't like the way Steve Scaffidi handled that interview with the governor or with the senator. My opinion, I think that's a really dangerous place for the FCC under any administration, Democrat or Republican, to go.
Steve Wexler joining us on 620 WTMJ Political Power Hour. A real life one. In the current White House, they are now selectively picking the reporters that get to cover the president and the government and the administration. Typically in the past was the White House, I think the White House Correspondents Association,
yes,
who selected the people, and there was a large number, and they were trying to be fair. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it concerns me because, if you believe that a free and robust press, whether it's left-leaning or right-leaning or middle-leaning or whatever, is really an essential part of our democracy, I guess I'm enough of a traditionalist to believe that all these public servants, whether they're the president of the United States or your mayor in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, you work for the public, right? I mean, your salaries are paid by the taxpayers. So I still do believe that right, which is a right, it's not a privilege. I know that this White House has said, well, it's a privilege to cover the president. I would say that it's actually a right that's enshrined in our Constitution. So I'm not a fan of this sort of limiting. To me, if you've attained a position of mayor, governor, president, senator, you ought to be able to handle the questions, critical questions from all sides of the political spectrum.
Brilliant point, because, and I'll say as someone who led a city, if you can't answer the tough questions, you shouldn't be in that position.
Well, that's my view, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you were the mayor, I think you assumed that I might ask you a question about how you're running my city, and I think that's fair game.
Steve Wexler, my guest. We got about 20 minutes left. We're going to talk about public broadcasting because there's some concerns there. It's sort of a weird story because they always claim, local public radio TV stations say, well, we only get our radio, we only get a little bit, but actually there's some indirect funding that means it's a lot of millions of dollars. What should that look like going forward? With Steve Wexler, my guest, Political Power Hour on the Monday edition right here on 620 WTMJ.
Hey, it's Penn of Penn and Teller. Get ready for an evening of big laughs and some really cool tricks as we bring our hit Vegas show one night only to the Riverside Theater in Milwaukee, March 27 at 8 p.m. Jimmy Fallon calls us one of the greatest acts in showbiz. The show the LA Times called the single best show in Vegas is coming right here to Milwaukee. Penn and Teller, an evening of magic and comedy at the Riverside Theater on March 27th. Get tickets today at the box office or the PabstTheaterGroup.com.
Hey, this is WTMJ. Steve Scaffidi for Advent. It changed my life. How? I had snoring issues, tossing and turning, restless nights of sleep, woke me up often, almost every night. Not that uninterrupted sleep that all of us desire and I now get. I did something about it. I went to Advent, one of their great facilities. It's like 5 years ago now. 30-minute visit. They answered all my questions, got to my problem. For me, sinuses, nasal passages, breathing triangle, very common. Now, different people have different problems, different solutions. Mine was pretty straightforward. After a short procedure done in office, I'm back to breathing better than ever. Sleeping through the whole night. Last night, 7.5 hours uninterrupted. It would be more than that, but I watched the Oscars. And if you struggle like I used to, take the time to see how Abbott can help you. To find out how breathing well and sleeping well can make your nights better, go to AbbottKnows.com. Schedule an appointment today. Do it, because Abbott knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
Since 1964, we've changed your tires and so much more. Richland's Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richland's.
My name is Emma. I'm 25 years old, and I work at the Wisconsin Athletic Club. And I just love what I do here because I feel like I helped a lot of people. I hope that other kids can have a goal that they can move out and live independently too. I've had all these opportunities because somebody said yes to me.
Live life to the fullest with Thinkability Wisconsin, a resource hub that supports people with disabilities throughout their lives. Connect with a real-time navigator at thinkabilitywi.org today.
Having fun on this Monday edition of the Political Power Hour, 620 WTMJ. Former teammate and boss, and the guy who hired me, essentially, with other people. Steve Wexler joining us in studio.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I knew your story in Oak Creek, and I followed how you handled the tragedy in, what year was that, Steve-O?
2012.
2012, okay. And I remember, I've always been on the lookout, wherever I've been, for just where are the interesting, thoughtful people in any community that I've been in. And so I was stalking you a little bit. You just were unaware of it. Sorry to tell you that.
Weird word, but a little weird.
But I was aware. Let's go with aware. And when we were reimagining some of the WTMJ programming, I had suggested to our programmers, why don't you go check out this Steve Scaffidi guy? And let me tell you, I'm glad we did.
Well, thank you for that. And Jazz, just producer note, take that interesting and thoughtful and send it to my wife, Kathy.
She might disagree. She might have a dissenting opinion.
All right, real quick, because I want to save some time for some fun stuff at the end. The requirement, essentially, that the federal government fund public broadcasting. Where's your take on that?
Well, I'm conflicted because I understand that there was a time, 1967 for public television, 1970, I think, for public radio, where there weren't a lot of voices. And so the public interest, I believe, was served by having taxpayer funding of public broadcasting. I'm conflicted because I think some of them do amazing work. I think there's some incredible journalists and some amazing content being created. But I do have to ask the question, why in today's world, where there are millions of voices available, are taxpayer funds being used to subsidize a broadcaster? This broadcasting company that you and I are on right now, we don't get a subsidy from the government.
No.
There's no taxpayer money flowing into Good Karma Brands. Why is there taxpayer money going into another broadcaster? So I think it bears scrutiny and discussion. I understood I understand the impetus then. I'm not sure it makes as much sense today.
Yeah, and I'm less concerned if they did take away some of that funding or all that funding. I think that's the public sector would step up, the private sector would step up and sort of take care of
because
that.
If there's demand for it, then it would be supported.
Because there's shows like Nova and those that I really like to watch.
Tremendous programs.
And I'll agree with you. There's so many other places to get this stuff now. That's why Sesame Street's now moved on to whatever platform they're on now.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I find Sesame Street.
I don't know.
Now with grandkids, I better be more aware.
It's been a while since I watched. All right, we have a a fun segment coming up.
What does that mean?
Well, there's listener questions.
Oh, okay.
Also, I think I might have skipped through this real quick, but somebody said it's good to put a face on you after all these years.
Is it though?
Well, this
Don't
person,
people usually
Gary
say
from Portage says good to put a face with
Gary,
the voice.
thanks, but isn't the saying that we have a face for radio? Isn't that the saying?
By the way, I hate that. Whenever someone says that to me, I hate that.
It's sort of an insulting thing to say to somebody,
That's
isn't it?
why I lost almost 35 pounds.
Yeah,
Because
and I told you this morning, your face looks terrific, Steve.
I appreciate it. You didn't say the whole thing, just the face. All right, Steve Wexler, some fun stuff. Political Power Hour, 620 WTMJ. That's next.
Hey Bucks fans, it's Justin Garcia from the Bucks Radio Network, here to tell you about the launch of the Bucks Central podcast feed. Everything Bucks, on demand, in one spot. From sideline to sideline, hear all the ankle-breaking, rim-rattling, and twine-tingling highlights, exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe to the Bucks Central podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. All the Bucks content your heart desires in one spot. Check out the Bucks Central podcast feed.
Hey, it's WTMJ Steve Scaffidi. We're just talking about it. Milwaukee weight loss. My journey, about 6.5 weeks now, lost, as of this morning, 33.5 pounds. And hopefully you can see it on the live stream. It's the secret, by the way, to losing up to 1 pound of fat every day. Their doctors have developed easy-to-follow weight loss program. I can do it, so it's easy. You lose weight fast, naturally, safely, no drugs, no injections, no serious side effects, no prepackaged meals, bars, shakes, all the stuff you've always heard about other programs. No exercising if you don't want it. I still walk, but that's my thing. It helps reset your metabolism so you can keep the weight off for good. I'm on this for a year, so I will maintain this weight, whatever my ultimate goal is. Their program costs up half as much as other programs. And this is the big one, works twice as fast. Go to MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com, schedule your free consultation. Most patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in about a month or two. Look at me. I'm a success story. You can be too. It's crazy to watch your body change. Schedule your free consultation by calling. I'll go slow. My wife says I say it too fast. 262-449-1180. 262-449-1180. Or online, easy online at MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. That's MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
Shop Steinhafels Make It Your Own event. Save up to $800 on the largest selection of sofas, dining sets, bedroom furniture, and more. All customizable so you can create the perfect piece for your space. And take advantage of Steinhafels' 18-month financing, only at Steinhafels.
We love being a trusted friend in the community for those who need an attorney but don't know where to turn. Our clients aren't the kind of people who typically bring lawsuits. Our clients have been hurt in a crash or accident and need our help and advice. I'm Jeff Zergabel of Pasternak and Zergabel. Frank Pasternak and I are injury lawyers living, working, and giving back in our community. When you need help from exceptional personal injury lawyers, go to Pasternak and Zergabel at injurywisconsin.com.
Your home can be more maintenance-free when you rely on J&B.
This is Tom Feza. When I have a roofing question, I contact Scott Klein, owner of J&B Construction, provider of high-quality exterior home improvement products and services since 1958.
Thanks, Tom. Between the two of us, we've seen hundreds of failed roofs, along with the unfortunate consequences of water damage. Poor workmanship, improper product usage, lack of ventilation, inferior flashing detail, and loss of control due to subcontractors are some of the most common reasons for roofs failing. At J&B, our objective is not just to sell another roof. We want to educate our clients. When J&B's experienced sales staff achieves that goal, our roof systems sell themselves.
For a complimentary roof evaluation, call Scott at 262-437-0537 or visit jnbconstruction.com.
Your home can be more maintenance-free when you rely on J&B.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee. From the Annex Wealth Management Studios, this is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
How do I say goodbye?
Oh, some sentimental music for the guest, Steve
Kind of
Wexler.
a mood setter there.
We're still going to have, it's not a fun song, but it's a sentimental song. All right. I got to ask you this question because I'm not even aware of this. This what is it? A Reverend Blue Jeans thing. Like 10 people have now asked about this. I don't know anything about this. What is this?
So that is just so wild that this keeps coming up. So let me tell you the story briefly. This is back when I was doing the overnight show on WTMJ, the wildly successful Wex.
What were the years for that?
1980.
Oh, wow.
1 to 1984. 1985. I did an overnight show on WTMJ, and the listeners called themselves, are you ready for this? Wexaholics. Had a little club.
Clever.
It was like 8 people, I guess, overnight who listened to the station. Anyway, there was a song by Neil Diamond. Do you remember the song Forever in Blue Jeans?
Oh, yeah. Famous song.
Yeah, big song. Forever in Blue Jeans, right?
Yeah.
So I played that song at like 3 o'clock in the morning, Steve, in 1983 or whatever it is. And a woman calls the radio station, and she's very upset with me and with the radio station. She wants to lodge a complaint because she thinks it's disrespectful for Neil Diamond to be singing a song about the Reverend Blue Jeans. She thought the song was the Reverend Blue Jeans.
Like Emily Latella.
Yes. So I, of course, put her on the air so that we could mock her complaint gently. And I said, ma'am, it's not the Reverend Blue Jeans. The song is Forever in Blue Jeans. For some reason, this little call at 2 o'clock in the morning in 1983 somehow has been remembered by somebody. And over the years, that story has been kept alive. And I'll just tell you this. Next time you hear Forever in Blue Jeans by Neil Diamond playing on the radio, you're going to think of the Reverend Blue Jeans. That's the story, and whether you think it's funny or not, I don't know.
All right, so at least a dozen now have asked about that.
That's just crazy to me that people still remember that.
All right, you got 50 years.
Yeah.
I'll let you go where you want with this, but the craziest or the wildest thing that you ever heard, saw on radio?
Oh, so on radio, just the craziest thing well, a lot of my stories actually come from Portland, Oregon, because I was in 1989, I was hired to go out and build a station from scratch in Portland, Oregon for the old King Broadcasting Company. And the assignment was just to find a bunch of interesting people, throw them on the radio, 24 hours a day, by the way, no network programming, just local, all night, all weekend, all around.
Live and local.
Live and local, 24/7. So we were putting everybody and anybody on the air. Steve, one Saturday night at about 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, which is never a good thing when you're managing a radio station. And I pick up the phone, and it's the overnight Saturday night talk show host calling me. And as I pick up the phone, he's apologizing. Wax, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about what's on the air. So I reach over to turn on the radio, and I hear a bunch of drunk wrestlers, like these pro wrestlers that would go around to the different markets. And he had invited them to come down to the radio studio on a Saturday night after their wrestling match. They physically removed him from the studio. They picked him up and set him out in the newsroom. And then they locked the door. They lodged the door with a chair and brought in their girlfriends and some beer.
Oh, wow.
And they took over the radio station. So I turn on the radio and I hear all these guys like dropping language, and the girls are making obscene suggestions. And he goes, what do I do? And I said, well, you call the police. And I got dressed and drove down to the radio station at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was insane. It was the longest 20-minute drive because I'm listening to the radio station being hijacked by a bunch of drunk wrestlers. And
never trust a wrestler is what I say.
Don't trust the wrestlers or the overnight air talent.
As far as you can try to throw them, because they're usually big dudes.
Exactly.
Some of the other folks are asking, I guess, I don't know if this is sort of the way things used to be. When you left, they gave you a watch. Did you get a watch?
No, I got a cookie.
You got a cookie?
I did. I got a very nice cookie with, by the way, with a bicycle on it, because part of my story when I started at WTMJ when I was 17, I rode my bicycle from Shorewood to WTMJ. And I walked in, and this is a true story. I said, can I be on the radio? And the woman said, no, but you can get coffee for the guy who is on the radio. And I went, okay, that's close enough.
That was Jonathan Green.
It was Jonathan Green.
Yeah.
And that's how I started my career. So the bike has always been sort of part of my story. So I did get a very nice cookie with a bike on it, and I will cherish it for hours.
A lot of people saying they were Wexaholics.
Well,
or Wex alcoholics.
Well, that's a whole different topic, right? But that was the overnight show that I did at WTMJ after I was interning with Jonathan.
I know you have a lovely wife, and I know you have great grandkids now.
Yes,
Two?
three.
Three now.
One here and 2 in Nebraska.
All right. Beyond that, which is a lot and fun, what are you most looking forward to in this sort of, whatever this retirement thing is?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the fact that now I have the chance to I've been speaking quite a bit to broadcast associations around the country and also to other companies. Like here locally, I've spoken over at Palermo's Pizza and at Pella Windows and Doors. I do a leadership and culture workshop for managers and leaders. Steve, based on a lot of the things that I've learned over the years that have worked and some things that haven't worked so well. And then I also talk to broadcasters and do some of their coaching and consulting. And if you're interested in any of that, you can find me at www.wexl.net, wexl.net. The call letters are the call letters that I used when I was practicing radio when I was a kid.
You were one of those guys, huh?
I was. I talked into a tape recorder until I thought I was good enough to be on the radio.
See, I didn't practice radio, but I listened to radio all night. You know, the Larry Kings and Jimbo Hannon. Art Bell.
Oh, my gosh.
Crazy
Art Bell,
dude.
crazy. The alien Art Bell show.
Oh, I fashioned myself doing something like Art Bell does once I'm done doing this.
See, I would love to hear you doing that kind of show because your brain would take us places that we've never been before.
People would be surprised. This has been a hell of a lot of fun. Steve Wexler, great teammate. Thanks for hiring me, and thanks for being here for the hour. All available on the podcast page. We'll do it again.
Please, anytime that I can contribute, let me know. But thank you for the invitation today, Steve.
Absolutely. News, and then the upswing with Jeff Sherman after this.
Have you here with me? I'd much rather be forever in blue jeans. And if you pardon me, I'd like to say we do okay. Forever in blue jeans, babe.
Hi, I'm Tony Drake from Drake & Associates. If you save for retirement in a 401k or IRA, let me ask you,